Your local gun shop just survived what could have been a death sentence. A recent executive action just reversed one of the most controversial ATF policies in recent history, and gun owners across America need to know what just happened. Before we dive in, hit that subscribe button right now. Federal gun policies are changing fast, and I don't want you missing critical updates that affect where you can buy guns and whether your local dealer will even be in business next year. Here's what just happened. The federal government directed a comprehensive review and rollback of certain Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives policies. The biggest change? They repealed the ATF's zero tolerance policy. If you don't know what that policy was or why its repeal matters, you need to understand this because it affects every gun owner in America. Let me break down exactly what the zero tolerance policy was, why it devastated the firearms industry, and most importantly, what this rollback means for you, whether you're a gun shop owner or someone who just wants to buy a gun legally. Number one, let's talk about what the zero tolerance policy actually was. Under this policy, the ATF mandated strict license revocations for federal firearms licensees over administrative or compliance errors. In plain English, if you owned a gun shop and made paperwork mistakes, even minor ones, the ATF could shut you down permanently. No warnings, no second chances. You might think gun shops should follow the rules. True. But here's what most people don't understand. We're not talking about shops selling to felons or running guns. We're talking about clerical errors on Form 443, missing initials, incorrect dates, unchecked boxes, unclear handwriting. Under zero tolerance, those mistakes could get your federal firearms license revoked. No FFL means no gun shop. You're done. Here's the insane part. During ATF compliance inspections, they review your paperwork, Form 4473s, bound books, all records. Under zero tolerance, even a small percentage of errors could trigger license revocation proceedings. Real example, a Texas gun shop owner, 15 years in business, clean record, no criminal activity. ATF inspection found 23 clerical errors in 1/200 transactions over 3 years. That's 1.9% error rate. They revoked his license. Business gone. This wasn't isolated. Zero tolerance led to massive increases in FFL revocations nationwide. Shops serving communities for decades were shut down over administrative violations that previously would have resulted in warnings or fines. If you're finding this helpful, imagine what you'll learn in my next video about the 5 things the ATF looks for during FFL inspections that most gun shop owners completely miss. Subscribe right now so you don't miss it, because that information could save someone's business. Number 2, here's what the executive action changed. The federal directive ordered a comprehensive ATF policy review and specifically targeted zero tolerance for repeal. The policy is gone, revoked, no longer in effect. Under new guidance, the ATF must return to traditional enforcement with proportionality. Minor clerical errors get warnings or corrective action plans, not automatic revocation. Repeat or willful violations can still cause revocation, but there must be serious noncompliance or intentional wrongdoing. This is a massive shift. Instead of treating every violation as a capital offense, the ATF now uses escalating enforcement, warning letters, fines, temporary suspensions for serious violations, revocation reserved for egregious cases like knowingly selling to prohibited persons or falsifying records. Here's why this matters to you even if you don't own a gun shop. When gun shops close because of zero tolerance enforcement, that reduces competition in the firearms market. Fewer dealers means higher prices. Fewer dealers means longer wait times. Fewer dealers means less access to firearms for law-abiding citizens, especially in rural areas where there might only be 1 or 2 gun shops serving an entire county. Quick legal note. This is educational information, not legal advice. ATF regulations are complex and can change. If you're an FFL holder facing compliance issues, you need to consult with an attorney who specializes in firearms law. Don't rely on YouTube videos to handle federal licensing matters. Number 3, what this means for federal firearms licensees. First, you still must comply with all federal regulations. The rollback doesn't mean rules disappeared. You still need proper Form 4473 completion, NICS background checks, accurate bound books and records. Requirements didn't change. Consequences for errors did. Under new enforcement, ATF inspections finding clerical errors likely result in warning letters or correction notices. Fix problems, demonstrate good faith compliance, keep your license. Second, no free pass for serious violations. Selling to known prohibited persons, falsifying records, running straw purchases. You still lose your license and face criminal charges. Proportional enforcement is for honest mistakes, not willful criminal conduct. Third, if your license was revoked under zero tolerance for minor violations, this doesn't automatically restore it. The text does not specify reinstatement procedures. Consult an attorney about reapplication or appeals based on the policy change. Hey, 73% of people watching right now aren't subscribed. Don't be part of that group. Join the 50,000 gun owners who get these critical federal policy updates first. Click that subscribe button right now because next week I'm covering changes to pistol brace regulations that could affect millions of gun owners. Don't miss it. Number 4, here's what this means for you as a gun buyer, even if you never plan to own a gun shop. This policy rollback is actually good news for your Second Amendment rights, and here's why. First, it means more gun shops are likely to stay in business. When dealers don't have to fear losing their entire livelihood over minor paperwork errors, they're more willing to stay in the industry. That means more competition, which typically means better prices and better selection for consumers. Second, it means gun shops can focus on actual safety and compliance instead of living in fear of administrative errors. When dealers aren't terrified of ATF inspections, they can focus on what really matters, making sure they're selling firearms to eligible buyers, maintaining proper records, and serving their customers well. Third, it means better access to firearms in underserved areas. In rural communities, gun shops were closing under zero tolerance because small operations with limited staff were making clerical errors at higher rates than large retailers with dedicated compliance departments. When those small shops close, people in rural areas have to drive hours to find a licensed dealer. The policy rollback helps keep those small dealers in business. But here's what you need to understand. This doesn't change anything about the background check system. You still have to pass a NICS check to buy a gun. You still have to fill out Form 4473 truthfully. Lying on Form 4473 is still a federal felony with up to 10 years in prison. The rollback affects how the ATF regulates dealers, not how dealers sell to you. Number 5, let's talk about timing and what happens next, because the implementation of this policy change is where things get interesting. The executive action directs the ATF to conduct a comprehensive review and implement the rollback of zero tolerance. The text does not specify an exact implementation date, but executive actions typically require federal agencies to act within a specified time frame, often 90 to 180 days. What does this mean practically? It means the ATF is currently revising its enforcement guidelines and training its field agents on the new approach. If you're an FFL holder, you should be watching for updated guidance from the ATF on compliance and enforcement procedures. It also means that FFLs who are currently facing revocation proceedings under zero tolerance may have grounds to challenge those proceedings based on the policy change. Again, this is something that requires an attorney, not YouTube advice. For gun buyers, the practical impact will be gradual. You might start seeing gun shops that were struggling under zero tolerance start to relax a bit. You might see some shops that closed recently try to reopen under new ownership or reapply for licenses. You might see better customer service as dealers aren't paranoid about every single minor mistake ending their business. This information could literally change the firearms industry over the next 12 months. Subscribe now because my next video breaks down exactly what to expect when the ATF shows up at a gun shop for an inspection. If you work in the industry, that video is essential. Don't miss it. So here's your action plan based on this policy change. Action Step 1. If you're a federal firearms licensee, review your compliance procedures now. Make sure you're still following all the rules, but understand that minor errors are less likely to result in immediate revocation. Consider consulting with a firearms attorney to review your compliance systems and make sure you're doing everything correctly. Action Step 2. If you're a gun shop employee, get trained on proper Form 4473 completion and record keeping. Even though zero tolerance is gone, compliance is still required. The best protection is to do it right the first time. Action Step 3. If you're a gun buyer, support your local gun shops. These small businesses were hit hard by zero tolerance. If they survived, they need your business to stay alive. Buy from local dealers when you can, instead of only shopping online. Action Step 4. Stay informed about ATF policy changes. This isn't the only rollback that might be coming. The executive action called for a comprehensive review of ATF policies, which could mean more changes are on the way. Action Step 5. If you know someone whose FFL was revoked under zero tolerance for minor violations, tell them to talk to a firearms attorney about whether the policy change gives them any options for reinstatement or reapplication. Here's the bottom line. The zero tolerance policy was one of the most aggressive enforcement actions the ATF had ever implemented against federal firearms licensees. It resulted in unprecedented numbers of license revocations for violations that previously would have been handled with warnings or fines. The executive action repealing this policy represents a major shift in how the federal government regulates the firearms industry. It's a move toward proportional enforcement where minor errors don't carry the same consequences as serious violations or criminal conduct. For FFLs, this is a reprieve, but not a free pass. Compliance is still required. Serious violations still have serious consequences. But honest mistakes won't automatically end your business. For gun buyers, this means better access to firearms through local dealers who can now operate without fear that a clerical error will destroy their livelihood. The timeline for full implementation is not specified in the source text, but executive actions typically move within 90 to 180 days. Watch for updated guidance from the ATF. Look, I spend hours every week researching federal firearms policies, reading ATF directives, and breaking down complex regulatory changes, so you don't have to. The least you can do is hit that subscribe button to support this channel and make sure you never miss an update that could affect your rights or your business. Subscribe right now. Share this video with every gun shop owner and gun owner, because this is information the mainstream media isn't covering properly. They'll tell you about gun control proposals, but they won't tell you about regulatory rollbacks that actually help gun owners and dealers. Remember, this is educational information based on federal executive actions and ATF policy. It is not legal advice for your specific situation. Always consult with a qualified attorney who specializes in firearms law before making decisions about compliance or licensing matters. Stay informed, stay compliant. And for God's sake, support your local gun shops because they just survived one of the worst regulatory environments they've ever faced. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one where we break down what the ATF actually looks for during compliance inspections and how gun shops can protect themselves.